There is a moment, and if you are honest with yourself, you know exactly what moment I am talking about. When you look around and realize that everyone you once called yours has quietly walked away. No dramatic goodbye, no final conversation, just silence where laughter used to live, just absence where warmth used to breathe. And you sit there, not broken by a single event, but by the slow, devastating accumulation of being forgotten, of being left, of being the one who always cared more. Have you ever felt that specific kind of loneliness? The kind that does not announce itself loudly but simply settles into your chest like cold air through an open window? That loneliness is not weakness. It is the evidence of your depth. Most people never love or trust deeply enough to experience this particular kind of pain. But here you are, carrying it alone and still searching for a reason to continue. The question is not why did they leave? The question is far more dangerous, far more honest, and far more transformative than that. Who will you become now that they are gone? Because what happens next, the choice you make in this exact moment of your life, will define you more completely than any relationship ever could. Let us be honest about the real pain. It is not just the absence of people. It is what their absence whispers to you in the dark. It tells you that you were not enough, that you were too much, that love always leaves eventually, so why open yourself again? That you are fundamentally, quietly, irreparably alone. Here's the cruel psychological truth that most people never confront. After abandonment, people do not seek happiness. They seek proof that they deserve to be abandoned. They replay old patterns, shrink themselves smaller, and wait for the next person to confirm the painful story they already believe about themselves. But Stoicism, ancient, ruthless, and quietly compassionate, says something radically different. It says your peace cannot be held hostage by another person's choices. What if the turning of their backs was not your ending, but your true beginning? Today, through 12 Stoic lessons, you will discover something that most people spend their entire lives searching for in the wrong places: the ability to build a happiness so deep, so internally rooted, that no person's departure can ever truly shake it. Not because you will stop caring, but because you will finally understand where real happiness lives. And it has never lived inside another person. What you are about to discover may completely change the way you see yourself forever. Stay through every lesson, because Lesson 11 and Lesson 12 contain the most dangerous and most liberating truths you have ever been offered about your own suffering mind. Lesson 1: your pain is real, but your story about it is lying to you. Most people, after being abandoned, do not suffer from the loss itself. They suffer from the meaning they have attached to it. The painful truth is this: you have made their departure a verdict about your worth. You have handed a human being the authority to define what you deserve, and they have used that authority carelessly. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The Stoic reframe is devastatingly clear. Their leaving speaks of their journey, not your value. Can you recognize how many times you have sentenced yourself for a crime you did not commit? Most people never question that story, and that unchallenged story becomes their lifelong prison. Lesson 2: happiness built on others is a house built on sand. The real danger is not that people leave. The real danger is that you built your entire emotional architecture inside of them. You gave them the keys to rooms that were always supposed to belong only to you. Seneca warned, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." When your happiness lives inside another person, you are nowhere the moment they leave. The Stoic insight is simple and devastating. Inner peace must be constructed within the self, or it does not truly exist at all. Have you been building your sense of safety inside people who were only ever passing through your life? Most people do this their entire existence and call it love. But this is exactly where most people destroy themselves completely. Lesson 3: Solitude is not your punishment. It is your power. Here's the part nobody talks about with enough courage. The silence after abandonment, that terrifying, vast, echoing silence, is not punishment. It is an invitation. Epictetus, who was once an enslaved man with nothing, discovered something radical in his total helplessness. The only kingdom no one could take from him was the kingdom of his own mind. Solitude strips away the noise of other people's expectations and forces you to finally meet yourself without a mask. The question is whether you are willing to sit in that silence and face who you find there. Most people are not, and that is precisely why they run immediately toward the next distraction, the next person, the next escape. Lesson 4. Stop asking why they left and start asking what this reveals. The obsessive question of why is one of the most psychologically destructive habits a suffering human being can indulge. It keeps you locked in the past, endlessly orbiting a moment that has already ended and cannot be changed. The Stoic redirection is this: instead of asking why they left, ask what this experience is revealing about you, about your patterns, your unspoken boundaries, what you have been tolerating in silence for far too long. Carl Jung called this shadow work, confronting what abandonment forces to the surface of your awareness. What has this pain revealed in you that you have been too afraid to examine? Because what happens next in this particular lesson changes absolutely everything about how you see yourself. Lesson 5. Your emotions are not your identity. One of the most damaging lies ever absorbed by a suffering person is this: your sadness is who you are. You begin to identify so completely with the grief of being left that you stop being a full person and become the wound itself. Viktor Frankl, who survived the unimaginable horror of Nazi concentration camps and lost everything human beings can lose, made a discovery that altered psychology forever. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lives your freedom. You are not your loneliness. You are not your rejection. You are not the sum of everyone who chose to leave. You are the one observing those experiences. And observers hold a power that victims will never discover. Lesson 6. What you seek in others, you are being called to build in yourself. Be honest, how many times have you searched for validation, warmth, safety, or a sense of belonging inside another person? And how many times did that search leave you more hollow than before you started? Musonius Rufus taught that the highest human work is self-cultivation, not the pursuit of external approval. Every quality you craved in others, loyalty, stability, depth, warmth, is a quality you are being called to develop within yourself. This is the terrifying and liberating truth hidden inside abandonment. It is not simply a loss. It is a blueprint. It shows you precisely which rooms of your own character still need to be built and furnished. Very few people ever understand this before it is too late. Lesson 7. Expectation is the root of all social suffering. Most people never recover from this one particular pattern. They enter every relationship carrying invisible contracts, unspoken expectations of how people should behave, how long they should stay, how much loyalty they should offer. And when reality fails to honor those invisible contracts, the suffering feels catastrophic and personal. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Begin each morning by saying to yourself, 'Today I shall meet with ungrateful, treacherous, and inconsistent people.'" He did not say this in bitterness or cynicism. He said it as an act of liberation. When you release the silent demand that people behave as you need them to, you simultaneously release the sharpest blade they hold over your peace. Have you ever tried living without those invisible contracts? Lesson 8. Grief is not weakness. Suppression is the real weakness. And this is the part nobody discusses with enough raw honesty. Stoicism is not about becoming emotionless. It is not about burying your grief beneath a wall of forced discipline and rigid composure. That is not strength. That is a slow internal catastrophe that will surface at the worst possible moment. True Stoic grief looks like this: You feel the pain fully, you name it honestly, and then you refuse to allow it to write the remaining chapters of your life story. Seneca said, "It is not that I am brave. It is that I know what is worth fearing." What is truly worth fearing is not the pain of loss. It is allowing that pain to become your permanent emotional address forever. Lesson 9. Loneliness reveals your relationship with yourself. Here is the most uncomfortable truth in this entire script, and many people will choose to dismiss it rather than face it honestly. The intensity of your loneliness is a direct and unflinching reflection of the poverty of your relationship with yourself. If you are unbearable to be alone with in silence, no number of people surrounding you will ever fix that inner emptiness. But if you can build genuine peace within yourself, no amount of external silence will ever truly destroy you. Epictetus did not ask his students who has abandoned you. He asked, who are you when absolutely no one is watching? Because that version of you, the one that exists in complete silence, is the only version that is genuinely and permanently yours. Lesson 10. Forgiveness is not for them. It is your escape route. Most people misunderstand forgiveness so completely that they use the misunderstanding as a chain around their own ankle. They believe that forgiving someone who caused them harm means excusing or minimizing that harm. It does not. Forgiveness is a Stoic act of radical self-liberation from a prison you have been maintaining with your own hands. Marcus Aurelius wrote that when you resent someone deeply, you hand them power over your sleep, your mornings, your peace, your future. Every moment spent in sustained anger is a moment they continue to occupy rent-free in the most valuable real estate you will ever own, your mind. Forgiveness does not set them free from consequence. It sets you free from them entirely. Lesson 11. The people who left made space for who you are becoming. What happens after abandonment that almost nobody prepares you for is this: the emptiness they leave behind is not simply a wound. It is space. Space for the person you were always meant to become, before the constant noise of their presence muffled your own authentic voice. Every person who exits your life removes a layer of who you were quietly pretending to be, in order to keep them comfortable and present. And underneath all those carefully removed layers is someone remarkably, terrifyingly real. Someone you have never fully and honestly met. The Stoics called this living in accordance with your true nature. Most people never find this level of authenticity because they are never willing to lose enough to discover it. Lesson 12. Happiness is not a destination, it is a daily discipline. And this final lesson is the one that changes everything you thought you knew. Happiness is not something that arrives when the right people finally decide to stay. It is not a reward waiting patiently at the far end of your suffering. It is a practice, a daily, deliberate, relentless act of choosing your inner state regardless of what your external circumstances are currently doing to you. Marcus Aurelius ruled an entire empire and still wrote to himself every single morning as a humble student of his own wandering mind. He did not wait to feel happy. He chose, every day, the thoughts that made happiness possible and real. This is the most important skill a human being can ever develop, and almost no one has ever taught it. Most people will ignore this and remain trapped. You now know the door exists. You came into this video carrying something heavy. Maybe it was the specific face of someone who left without a real explanation. Maybe it was the accumulated weight of being consistently undervalued, quietly overlooked, or slowly discarded by people you gave your very best self to. And I want you to understand something with every part of your being. What happened to you was real. The pain was real. The loss was real. The grief was real and valid and yours. But so is this moment. And this moment is asking something of you that none of those people ever truly asked. It is asking you to rise. Not for them. Not to prove something to anyone who chose to walk away. But for the version of yourself that has been quietly waiting beneath. every wound you have been carrying, alone in the dark. The Stoics did not teach us to be cold or emotionally absent. They taught us to be unbreakable. And there is a profound difference between those two things. Being unbreakable does not mean you never shatter. It means that every single time you shatter, you gather the pieces with more intention and build something stronger, something wiser, something more authentically you. Slowly, almost invisibly, you will stop needing the validation of anyone who was never truly equipped to see your depth. The most extraordinary transformation in a human life does not happen during the comfortable times. It happens in the silence after abandonment, when you finally decide that your happiness will be yours alone, constructed by your own hands, cultivated in your own mind, and protected by your own unwavering discipline. If this video reached something inside you that you have been carrying alone for longer than you can remember, then you already understand why this channel exists. Subscribe, not because a number needs to grow, but because you deserve a space that speaks honestly to the parts of you that the world rarely acknowledges or honors. Leave one word in the comments below, just one word, describing what you are choosing to release today. Because sometimes the most powerful declarations we make are the quiet ones. And to whoever is watching this in the middle of a painful night, wondering if it truly gets better, it does. But only after you decide that your peace belongs to you and to no one else. Now go build something they never believed you were capable of.